Our next guest is calling out Democrats for dismissing the good news about the economy under President Trump. Larry Elder tweeted a quote from Congressman Cleaver in 2011 when he said, as the chair of the Black Caucus, I've got to tell you, we are always hesitant to criticize the president. With 14% black unemployment, if we had a white president, we'd be marching around the White House. Then he said it's now 6.8%. Trump gets zero credit.
Larry Elder joins us now. So, Larry, why no marching around the White House with that number not at 14, but at 6.8%?
That's a good question. It's because Trump gets no love. I'm sure you heard the joke. Trump is on his yacht entertaining a bunch of reporters. A wind goes by. A hat gets swept into the ocean by the wind. Trump goes over the rail, walks on water, bends over, picks up the hat, returns it to the reporter. Next day, headline in the New York Times, Trump can't swim. The man won't get any credit for anything. Look, Obama walked around for 8 years and talked about how he rescued the economy, when in fact he gave us the worst economic recovery since 1949, the first president ever to preside over a recovery where we did not have a single year of 3% GDP growth. We had a 2% GDP recovery, and every 1% is 1 million jobs times the length of the recovery. So if Obama had done nothing and just practiced his putting, we would have had a 3% recovery. There would have been about 7 or 8 million more jobs. A rising tide lifts all boats. What Donald Trump has done is he's cut down the regulations, lowered taxes, and brought in a business-friendly environment. Obama was the most anti-business president I've ever...
Because he didn't respect separation of powers, co-equals branches of government, you're an attorney, Larry, and he did everything by executive fiat and, rule of, the pen there. I'm thinking Donald Trump in 3 hours will wipe out 75% of Obama's agenda. They're already now working on repealing and replacing Obamacare. That's 85. The only thing that I see remaining is the debt, the deficit, the judges that he's appointed, and, of course, internationally, the damage that he's created. What is his legacy? What can he point to?
His legacy, Sean, is Donald J. Trump. That's what his legacy is.
Wow.
And the fact that the majority of the American people feel that we're on the wrong track economically, on the wrong track in terms of foreign policy. And to follow up on what Bo just now said, he's echoing the thoughts by people like Tavis Smiley and Cornel West, who said that under Obama, the black economy has suffered. Black net worth is down. Black home ownership down. Black home equity down. The so-called wealth gap between the average black family and the average white family hasn't been this wide in 25 years. Sean, you and I have talked about the very small labor force participation rate. For black men, it has never been this low since they've been tracking the number because of Obama's policies. Taxing, spending, regulating, putting pressure on the backs of the American people, the backs of job creators. It does not work.
Trump's been in office for, as we're taping this, like 5 days or something. And it's like, there is just going to be massive scandal after massive scandal. Obama said just a couple weeks ago that he's very proud that his administration got through without a major scandal. Now, that depends on what your definition of scandal. I suspect you disagree with that. But in terms of like a personal scandal or some real stealing of something or that kind of thing, but maybe you don't see it that way.
I do not see it that way. But your question was, what does it say about us? Where have we gone? Yeah. What it says about us is that when it's a Republican in office, somebody like Richard Nixon that people did not like, there's one level of scrutiny and one level of judgment. When it's a Democrat, somebody like Clinton or like Obama, there's a whole different thing. For Obama to say with a straight face that I've not had a major scandal, are you kidding me? What was Fast and Furious? What was Hillary's email server? What was denying the nonprofit applications of conservatives with the IRS? You can have your doctor, you can keep your doctor, and Obama reiterated that line after it was obvious from the regs that you couldn't necessarily keep your doctor or you couldn't necessarily keep your plan. So
that line, didn't he basically say that the ends justify the means? That's sort of what he's saying. Like, I had to sell it, and we kind of knew. I'm not defending that particular line. But that was sort of his mea culpa.
I still think it's a scandal.
Yeah.
For you to say that you're going to bend the cost curve down, people are going to be no worse off, they're going to save money, and you don't save the money when you know full well that you can't keep your doctor if you want to keep your doctor, and to say it anyway, that to me, as far as I'm concerned, is a scandal.
Yeah.
Pulling out all the troops out of Iraq, over the advice of his entire national security team. Hillary wanted him to keep a stay-behind force. His Secretary of Defense wanted a stay-behind force. The CIA director wanted a stay-behind force. The Joint Chiefs wanted a stay-behind force. Our U.S. ambassador to Iraq advised Obama against pulling all the troops out. He did it anyway, and the media gave him a pass for that. And Ray Odierno, the retiring Army general of the Joint Chiefs, said that had the troops not been pulled out, ISIS could have been dealt with. That, to me, is a massive scandal for which Obama got a pass and still gets a pass.
So is that one of the situations?
Let's look at some of the numbers. Under President Obama, black unemployment, it peaked at 16.6%. The lowest under President Obama was 7.8%. It's even lower than that right now under President Trump at 6.8%. But President Obama is taking credit for it. Listen to this.
We saw the longest streak of job creation in American history by far, a streak that still continues, by the way. Thanks, Obama.
Is he right, in part at least?
No, he's not. The reason the American economy improves is because the American economy always improves whenever there's a recession. The deeper the recession, the higher the bounce back. We did not have a high bounce back. This is a president where black unemployment got worse when he was in office. The so-called wealth gap between the average black household and white household didn't get that wide in 25 years. No matter how you slice it, even Tavis Smiley, the left-wing commentator on PBS, said by every major economic measure, the Obama years, black people got suffered under the last 8 years. By every major economic measure, things are worse off for blacks under Obama. I didn't say this; Tavis Smiley did. So go and write an angry letter to the rate. For black men, it has never been this low since they've been tracking the number because of Obama's policies: taxing, spending, regulating, putting pressure on the backs of the American people, the backs of job creators. It does not work.
I grew up in a town called Franklin Square. It's in Long Island in New York.
Right.
And if I ever became president, I know people would laugh at that. I'm just saying, if I was the president, and
Stranger things have happened,
last year, all right, it's not that funny, Larry, okay? But if I was the president and I read in my hometown where I grew up, the town I come from, you know, when it's all said and done, that's where I'm going to be. I think I would have gone back and paid a lot of attention if 4,000 people in my town were killed in an 8-year period. I think I would have been there often to try and solve the problem. Why was he missing in action in Chicago?
That's a good question. And you look at Chicago and all that left-wing brain power. You've got Bill Ayers there. You've got Rahm Emanuel there. You've got Jesse Jackson there. You got Farrakhan. You got Father Flagler. And of course, Obama has adopted Chicago as his adopted hometown. That ought to be a shining city on a hill. Instead, its finances are in the toilet. We talked about the violence. They've done about 750 homicides in 2016. That's substantially higher than 2015. 70%, by the way, of these homicides, Sean, are unsolved. And in a city that's a third white, a third black, and a third Hispanic, 70% of the homicides are black on black. Where is Obama? What's his policy? I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. By the way, are you following this hysteria on some of the other networks about the Russian spies and what might have been told Donald Trump when he met with some of our national intelligence folks, and what Barack Obama might have heard, and there might have been blackmailable material? Donald Trump's been tweeting tonight that, of course, it is fake news. And he pointed out that Michael Cohen, a special counsel to Donald Trump at the Trump Organization, was never in Prague, and that a lot of what has been reported tonight on other news networks has not been verified. But the hysteria to run with a story before any verification, what do you make of that?
Well, I think Donald Trump is bothered by the notion that but for Vladimir Putin, he would not have won the presidency, and that's what's bothering him. But there is a conflict. We have a bunch of people who were yelling and screaming that George W. Bush was lying when he relied on all 16 of our intelligence agencies, the very same people who are yelling at Donald Trump for saying that I don't believe them. So I'm not quite sure whom to believe. But I do want to say this real fast, Sean. Your becoming president is far more plausible than Donald Trump becoming president a year ago. So don't laugh. A lot of very smart people, Sean, would love to see you at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and I'm one of them.
Whether or not we should have stayed or not stayed, and that's fine. Look, I believe that as long as the American public did not have the will to stick it through, because what George W. Bush said was, we'll leave when Iraq can stand up. As long as the American people did not have the will to do that, we shouldn't have gone. But I'm surprised, I think George W. Bush is surprised, I think Dick Cheney is surprised, that over the advice of all the people that I just now mentioned, Obama pulled all the troops out anyway. He envisioned a stay-behind force to make sure that Iraq would be stable. I mean, we stayed in Germany, we stayed in Japan, we're still in South Korea. Yeah. It takes a while for Democrats.
I'm pretty sure we have 30,000 troops in Germany now or something like that.
Something like that. It takes a while for democracy to take root. And for us to bail out the way we did was incredibly irresponsible, and I thought jeopardized national security. And again, I am surprised that Obama felt confident enough to walk into the Oval Office and ignore the advice of all these people.
So would your argument be basically that these scandals, these issues that you brought up, basically he got a pass because the media is sort of in on it with the Democrats? Is that the basic idea?
Absolutely. For him to say, as he said many times during press conferences, I'm most proud of the fact that I rescued the U.S. economy. Really? The major things that were done, TARP and bailing out the auto companies, George W. Bush had set that into motion. His stimulus program, most economists don't believe it did anything. Obamacare was a brand new entitlement dropped on the back of job creators. And notice how he no longer bragged about things like cash for clunkers and cash for caulkers. He doesn't even, cash for clunkers rather, he didn't even talk about that anymore because they were boondoggles. They did not work. They cost the American